justice wherever it might be found. So the Phantom lives in the whispers of 23 generations.
Nowadays, when we think of the superhero, we always focus on prominent heroes from the Marvel and DC universe, such as Thor, Captain America, Batman, The Flash, etc. But there was a hero long before these characters even existed, and that hero is Phantom. From early 1936, Phantom had been winning the hearts of readers with his detective prowess, quick wit, his swift deliverance of justice, and of course, his rootin' tootin' gun action. There's almost an aura of the supernatural preempting his surroundings, so put your safari hats on as we venture into the jungles where the Phantom lives and learn if he truly has supernatural powers or if there's something else at play. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Phantom, and what does he look like? Being one of the many iconic characters of Pulp magazine, Phantom garnered quite a fan base. His look became so iconic that even through the decades, we see passionate fans recreating it. But what was this iconic look? It was a purple bodysuit covering his whole body, except his face and hands. On top of that suit, he wore a pair of striped pants over his trousers. He styled them with a pair of leather boots and accessorized them with a black leather belt, along with a holster for his 2 revolvers. Finally, there's the iconic black domino mask with white pupilless eyes. And that, my friends, was the outfit for decades to come for Phantom. This garb, when it was dark, made him look ghostly. This is something that Phantom often used as an element of surprise when he attacked his foes. Now, owing to his outfit, he looks completely out of this world, but in reality, he is just a man like us. The origin of Phantom was not something that was immediately discussed when Lee Falk first introduced him. However, as he gained popularity, eventually the writer had to give him a badass origin that matched his general badass demeanor. And once the origin was given to us, it sure blew our minds away. Turns out, back in the 16th century, there was a young boy called Christopher Walker. He was sailing the treacherous waters with his father. When I call the ocean treacherous, it is not simply because of its unpredictable nature. It is also because the ocean tends to have quite a few threats other than big waves. One such threat was the pirates. And as luck would have it, Christopher's ship was attacked by them. The fight that followed was brutal, and by the end of it, no one except Christopher had survived. The poor boy washed up on the shore of Bangalore where he was all alone. He was in terrible shape and probably would have died in the jungle had the local pygmy tribe not taken him in. Once he was physically well, the memories of the pirates and their ruthlessness kept coming back to him. Painted with such thoughts, Christopher swore on his father's skull that he would serve justice. He swore to devote his entire life to the destruction of piracy, greed, cruelty, and injustice. On top of that, Christopher swore that his children and their children would carry forward the work that he had started because justice could not wait. So with such a hardcore origin story, it is no surprise that the Phantom we see is hardcore in his own way. At a glance, he looks quite muscular, but as you notice the way he moves, you will soon realize that the Phantom's muscles, although rather developed, work mostly for his agility and accuracy. Phantom has always trained in various martial arts, which sharpen his senses to the fullest. Despite being super adept to killing people, Phantom never kills anyone. He is a strong-willed man, much more focused on what's doing right instead of killing people. He is kind to his friends and terrifying to his foes. There is more than one quote that showcases just how terrifying this man can be when he wants to be. The Phantom, as a man, deeply respects the connection he has with his ancestors. Everything that he does shows very clearly that his hero is here to do the right thing, and that makes him quite the inspiration. This is who the Phantom is, and I do not know about you, but I, for one, love the complexities that he brings to the table. Is Phantom a ghost or human? Is there only one Phantom? If you have been a Phantom fan for a while, then you definitely have noticed that the Phantom loves using superstitions and surprise against criminals. One of the things that we often see him use is the reputation of being the ghost who walks. The mere concept of having someone's ghost follow you around for days until they exact revenge is far more terrifying than any supernatural foe that can exist in any given form. But was there any truth to it? Sadly, no. Christopher Walker Jr., who became the first ever Phantom, was a mortal man like us. He married the woman he loved and had a son, who was also named Christopher Walker. The son underwent vigorous training like his father did and became ready to be the next Phantom. When the father ended up with a mortal wound, he came into a secret cave where his son officially took the mantle after him. The son became the new Phantom by swearing on the skull, and the father was laid to rest in that secret chamber. Over the years, generation after generation, this was the tradition that the Walkers followed. This led all the criminal groups that had the misfortune of facing the Phantom to assume that he was the ever-living ghost who just never stopped coming after them. Now, I am aware that I said that the sons were trained and they took the mantle after their fathers, but if you know biology, you would know that there are to be generations where the kids born were girls. So what happened then? Well, Phantom followed the gender equality role when it came to serving justice. There are accounts of female Phantoms as well, notably Jeddah Walker, the 28th Phantom, Julie Walker, the twin sister of the 17th Phantom, and Eloise Walker, the older daughter of Kit Walker Jr. These women followed their father's footsteps and took the mantle of the Phantom, spending their lifetime serving others to their fullest capabilities. When I think about it, this fact will reinforce the supernatural element associated with a Phantom's reputation, since it elevates the perception of the Phantom from just someone's ghost to an entirety beyond human form, which takes any shape, form, or gender it chooses. Does he have night vision? Does he have a technologically advanced mask? Those of you who have spent copious amounts of your childhood time looking into the Phantom comic strips that appear in the newspapers would remember that the Phantom seemed to be very good at stealth. As for a man his size, both in height and musculature, it is highly interesting to see how he is able to sneak around the place so stealthily. But when he is in pitch black darkness, one has to wonder how Phantom manages to sneak around the way he does. Well, as we have discussed prior, the martial arts training had made him very agile and light on his toes. With his sharp senses, navigating in the darkness is a piece of cake for him. However, the times are changing, and with the onset of technology, the Phantom also has to keep up with the turns of the tide. Otherwise, he would end up outdated, giving his opponents an unfair advantage over him. The 22nd Phantom, Kit Walker, made some modifications to his domino mask to help with his stealth. This iconic mask, which looks oh so thin and sleek, employs modern technology that Kit got from Krieghund, the most tech-savvy place of all time. The domino mask was now equipped with night vision as well as an infrared scanner. With just these two, Phantom got quite the upgrade. But this is not the only thing that Kit's domino mask can do. Kit's domino mask can also scan for other people who are in similar stealth suits. The stealth suit works in the way they do because of the material they are made from. This material is refractive in nature, making them effectively very hard to spot. The domino mask, however, can undo refraction, making it easier for the viewers to see them. With such sophisticated technology at his disposal, it is no wonder that the Phantom is so difficult to defeat. Does his body repel bullets? The Phantom comics was first published in newspapers, which effectively makes it a part of Pulp magazine and Pulp comics. However, over time, the Phantom as a character transitioned from the newspaper to actual comic books. Obviously, at one point, both the most popular conglomerates of the comic book world, DC and Marvel, took a shot at their own reimagining of the character. When it came to the 1995 Marvel version of the Phantom, there are certain things about him that are very different from the original character that we have followed for almost 6 decades. Here, the Phantom is more opinionated and hot-headed. His stories are now more focused on political affairs and less on piracy. Not that that's a bad thing. The reimagining brought a fresh makeover of the character and fans loved it. But it was not just the personality that got the makeover. The technological support that the Phantom had also went through major amendments. Gone were the days of the Phantom being hurt by bullets. This Marvel reimagining gave the Phantom a bodysuit which was completely bulletproof. For someone who is called the Ghost Who Walks, it must have been rather unghostly when the criminals were able to hurt the Phantom with bullets. But now, with the bulletproof vest, the Phantom was truly the ghost who walked. Nothing could hurt him anymore, which definitely amped up the tension in the 3-issue miniseries that Marvel introduced. Does Chanting give him superhuman strength? With the rise in popularity of this character, it would have been absolutely stupid not to cash in on the superhero animated series boom that happened in the 1980s. And that is exactly why, in the 1980s show called Defenders of the Earth, we get to see our favorite ghost who walks. When a comic book series is being adapted for television, the writers of the show definitely get some creative liberty over the characters they are going to show on the screen. The changes that they bring out of this said liberty may or may not be liked by the fans, as we know. The Phantom in the series happened to be the 27th Phantom, the father of Jeddah, the female Phantom. He, unlike his comic book counterpart, showed a certain ability that left fans astounded. Turns out, when this Phantom chants a certain mantra, calling to the jungle and asking nature to lend him the power of 10 tigers, he actually gets it. This superhuman strength is temporary, and the Phantom is seen using it whenever he absolutely needs it. While the comic book version does not have this power, as a fan, I have to say that this edition was rather interesting. This edition gives his infamous name a new meaning, because if not a ghost, then who would end up with supernatural powers just by chanting? Overall, I think it was a good addition to his roster. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Does he have a magical ring or finger? Do you think heroes should wear rings as an accessory to their regular outfits? While you ponder about the question, let me tell you about Phantom's rings that are more than just accessories. Eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed that Phantom wears a ring on each of his hands. These rings were not always there. These rings became a staple for the Phantom since the reign of the 5th Phantom. The pair of white golden rings create a stark contrast against the otherwise dark suit, and yet somehow, they do not immediately draw the reader's attention to them. Although at a glance they may look awfully similar, these two rings could not be more different. One of the rings that he wears on his left hand is called the Good Mark ring. This ring has 4 P's, making a cross for the insignia, while the other ring, which has an insignia of a skull, is aptly called the Skull ring. Now both of these rings are extremely popular amongst the pygmy tribes and criminals for their mystical properties of the rings. When touched by the rings, the recipient of this would be marked forever. The people who were marked with the Good Mark ring were marked to be under the Phantom's protection, effectively making them off limits for anyone who might be thinking about causing them harm. It was also said that being marked by this ring gave the receiver of the mark ring luck, which never seemed to run out. The skull ring was for the opposite kind of people, of course. People who were marked with a skull ring, usually with a powerful hook, were effectively marked for the wrath of the Phantom. Not only were these people always facing the wrath, but they were also shrouded with a thick cloud of bad luck that they could never seem to run away from. At first, the assumption was that the ring had some magical properties that allowed them to leave marks on the skin the way they did. However, later we learned the truth behind the branding that these rings do to the skin. In the Bangalore jungles, there is a particular type of berry that can create permanent marks on the skin. The insignia of these rings were drenched in the juices of these berries, making it easier for the Phantom to mark anyone with them. One fun thing about the good mark that the Phantom leaves is that there is no guarantee that he would deliver it on the skin as he does with the skull ring. We see that there have been multiple cases where to give one a good mark, the Phantom gave them a locket instead. This locket was passed down, and whoever the mark was with never found themselves in harm's way. Is there a grey Phantom? Lee Falk, the creator of his marvelous character, wanted to call this character the Grey Ghost. He imagined the Phantom to be in a grey costume, and honestly, when the Phantom was first released, it really did not matter that much. After all, the newspapers back then were in black and white. The first 3 years of publications went without a hitch. However, things became a little tricky when the comic strips needed to be colored. Now, if you look at the color wheel, purple is the complementary color to green. Given that the Phantom is almost always in the jungle, it made sense to turn his suit purple. Lee Falk did not have a say in this, and there are several issues where he has repeatedly referred to the suit as being gray. The comic series became extremely popular all over the world, and while printing purple in the newspapers was not an issue in the US, other countries did not have the liberty to do that. This led to more iterations of the Phantom with red suit and blue suit, to name a few. In 1956, Lee Falk referred to Phantom's suit as purple for the first time in Heavyweight Champion, and then in the first Phantom, we get the supposed backstory about the color scheme. Turns out, the friendly pygmy people who were so kind to Christopher had beef with a particular tribe known as the Wasaka Giants. The Phantom, who was more than happy to protect his friends, decided to dye his clothes with non-poisonous berries to match the color of the demon idol that that these giants feared. So in a way, the color purple was used in the story to make people afraid of him. By nature, purple is a secondary color. Usually we see villains wearing or having purple in their designs, like Ursula. Although the color symbolizes regality and royalty, the character we see in the comics who are adorned in purple are usually neither. When it comes to the Phantom, things are a little different. He is almost hailed as a king of the jungle because everything and everyone in the jungle follows his word. With such responsibilities and respect, is it that surprising that the man is in a royal color? Let's not forget that the majority of the time, each generation of the Phantom married women of royal blood. So royalty is something the Phantoms definitely have. Would you agree?
Of 10 tigers.
Marvelous verdict. The Phantom is an iconic character from the Pulp magazine era of comics. The Phantom had every characteristic of a Pulp magazine character. He was dark, he was somber, he was mysterious, and mostly, he was a detective. With his charisma and strong morals, Phantom rose through the ranks amongst all the Pulp magazine characters from that time. He became a huge icon in the Papua New Guinea region, as well as in India, Sweden, and the Netherlands, to name a few. People who may not have heard so much about the current comic book heroes seem to remember the Phantom, proving yet again how remarkable his character was. With one of the strongest fan bases in the entire world, the Phantom has to be brought back, especially for us millennials who grew up with these comics in the newspaper. Here's to the hope for a comeback. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.